Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Ray from the Baden Presbyterian Church with a message on the 3rd of May as we continue in this COVID-19 shutdown. The title of this message is When Jesus Said, Stay Home. It's based on John chapter 8, beginning at verse 30, where we read these words. As he was saying these things, many believed in him. The context is sort of a debate, a controversy going on between Jesus and some Jewish leaders and others in the temple. So verse 31 goes on to say, So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed him, If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Well, as I said, the context of this is a long discussion in the earlier parts of John chapter 8, in which Jesus tries to persuade some of the Jewish leaders and others that he is indeed their true Messiah. He's getting some hostility, but he's also getting some who are sympathetic and are beginning to listen to him. But if you keep reading, you'll notice that after these verses I just read, the hostility toward him increases and gets hotter and hotter to the point of near violence. So when this section begins by saying he was addressing people who believed him, we're forced by the context to say these are people who believed yet did not. Well, this would not be the first time that happened. If you go back to John chapter 6, you'll remember that that's when we have the bread of life message, when he told people they needed to eat his flesh and drink his blood, as he pointed forward to the meaning of the Lord's Supper. And we're told then that many of the disciples left him at that point. It is easy to have a casual attraction to Jesus. That could be called believing, but serious discipleship is another matter than just casual believing. He's offering truth and he's offering freedom, both of which are in himself. They're not abstractions apart from him. He is the truth, as we'll see later in John 14:6. He will explicitly say that, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Earlier, he warned these would-be disciples that if they rejected him, they would die in their sins. Well, in their frustration, they got more and more hostile with him until they left. It's interesting when you read these cases because you could ask, why was Jesus not more careful to hold on to would-be followers? He seems willing to alienate them by saying some fairly harsh and difficult things to receive. His message at times didn't seem so super friendly. If we talk about the seeker-friendly churches today that try to lure people in with fine music and lots of other things, it doesn't look like Jesus is seeker-friendly much of the time. But in other places he was. In other places he was very warm and inviting. So I think we have to conclude that in his sovereign knowledge, he knew the difference between people who were hungry for truth and hungry for God, and whose belief, though weak and small, like a grain of mustard seed, was genuine, and others who would follow him only if he fit their agenda and their preconceived ideas of what it must mean for him to be the Messiah. And particularly among these Jews who had the idea that the Messiah had to be a warrior king like David and who was willing to overthrow the Roman occupiers and that sort of thing. So we have to believe that Jesus in his own mind and heart knew the difference, and that's why with some, he's rather stern, even if that means they'll leave him, whereas with others he was quite gentle. Well, why did I call this When Jesus Said, Stay Home? Well, it's because of the translation of that 31st verse, where he said, If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. Excuse me. That word abide is the traditional translation of this Greek word meno, which means to stay, to linger, to hold on to, and that sort of thing. But it also, we also need to see that this verb form is the verb form of a noun that meant a dwelling or to dwell. And that means, in other words, a home. So I looked at several translations and found that the Jerusalem Bible really captures this meaning when it renders the verse, "If you make my word your home, you will indeed be my disciples." What a beautiful image, and a good one for us at this time. To make the word of Christ our home. Well, what is a home? Well, a home is a place of refuge. It's a place of safety. It's a place we always want to return to. Well, most of us love to take trips sometime, but we always want to get home eventually. It's a place we protect, and it's a place of restoration and rest. So when Jesus says, "Make my word your home," those are the kind of images that are brought to mind. That when we make his word our home, it becomes our permanent dwelling place. And what he says to those would-be disciples and what he says to us is that the true test of discipleship is that we continue in his word, that we abide in his word, that we dwell there, that we live there, that we make his word our home. So, yes, there was a time when Jesus said, "Stay home." And as I wrap this up, if you'll look at the picture that I'm using as a background today, I invite you to figure out what the spiritual image or spiritual lesson of those trees might be. And leave it for me in a comment if you think you know. May the Lord bless you as you continue to stay home, and I pray that you will stay home in his word as well. Amen.